Welcome to New Realities. I'm here with the lovely Carolyn Corey, and we're also broadcasting on many, many platforms. And she has just created, I think, one of the most important films of the century, 21st century, because it is about human potential. It's about a revolution. It's an incredible film. Thank you, Caroline, for being here because you're showing us what's possible, and in a way, what's always been possible for who we are. Superhuman, the invisible made visible. So tell us about how you got the idea for that film, and we'll show a little trailer for it. But how did you get the idea?
Hey, Alan, good to see you again. Yeah, so, this has been the story of my life. Since I was a kid, I would have experiences. I would look at someone and I would know what's wrong with them, what's going to happen to them. I would hear their thoughts. I would know about events before they happen. It's like the radio was playing in my head. The next day I would see it on the news, stuff like that. And so I didn't think it was anything special. I just kind of thought, okay, everybody does that. All kids do that. But it got me thinking, like, how is it possible that my brain would pick up this information? Like, right. And where is it picking it up from? So as I'm asking these questions, I got into the field of consciousness, because it is the consciousness that was doing that. It wasn't my brain. And so for 20 years, I, started working on consciousness studies, the mechanics of consciousness. How does it all work? How does it connect with reality? So I started teaching and lecturing forever, trying to validate those experiences, which I'm not the only one. I'm sure many people have them. So, but at one point it was like, wait, I started working with scientists, and we would do experiments where I would be tapping into wherever they were and try to influence an object or a device, and it would have a crazy effect. And then we would do it again and again. Then it was water. We worked with water. Then we worked with... So because we were getting real results, repeatable results and measurable results, I was like, this is real. I mean, we need to tell the world that the mind does have an effect. It's not this abstract concept out there. This is real stuff. And because not everybody wants to read a book, not everybody wants to go to a lecture, I said, I have to make a film. So that's how it all came about.
Well, with that sort of introduction, let's just show the trailer, okay?
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Because the energy is all around us, you can communicate with all types of different things.
Well, what we do here is collect intelligence against foreign threats using a parapsychology discipline called remote viewing. We essentially want to invite you to become a psychic spy.
We know our own CIA had been experimenting in psychic tests and abilities.
The Israelis had an interest in it and may still. We know for a fact that the Russians were involved in this. We know for a fact that the Chinese were and are probably still involved.
Something's happening that's bigger than us.
Oh my gosh, this is blowing my mind. Like, this is insane.
We are pieces of consciousness playing avatars in a virtual reality game called This Physical World.
This is Captain Corey of the USS Red Recorder, leaving a message that may be detected in other universes.
The rain was tapping, and the windows and the wind was banging.
So we sort of come to this world, and I guess in our materialistic sense, we want to forget about vibrations. We just want to think of matter and stuff.
That's a whole unit. That's a large effect. The fact that you can change the acid-alkaline balance in water implies that you could change it in the body.
This is what this is about. Mind over matter.
Hi, that is great. I mean, I saw the whole film. So basically, you say We can move objects with our minds. We could see long distance, remote viewing, and anywhere in time space. We could see through blindfolds. I mean, you could move things in a vacuum. So there's no limit really to what we can do and who we are as superhuman beings. Why isn't this taught in every elementary school around the world? Wouldn't that change everything?
Yeah, you tell me, right? I mean, I think this would be a different world, really, if kids at a young age just start to understand the concept that they are more than their physical body, that they could do things with their minds. At least, for example, like you can start with simple things like when they have a tummy ache or a headache or whatever. I mean, what if instead of trying to say, well, what's wrong, honey? Here's, this, or go do this, or why don't we just simply suggest that, they could, in fact, I do that with some kids and it works. You just simply say, well, try to focus on your tummy and make it go away. And they think it's a game and it works. So if we grow up with this sort of understanding, we would be so much more empowered and self-reliant.
Absolutely. Actually, I think I'm going to focus on my tummy now. I just had to say something. But no, absolutely. We have this facility that we haven't been taught. We've actually not been taught. I don't get into conspiracies, but I do think something's going on that's kept us from knowing ourselves, because if we knew how powerful we are, we wouldn't be enslaved to a media, politics, religion, educations that want to dumb us down, but instead we'd lift us up.
Yeah, I mean, think about this. If we, at a very young age, we learn to take care of our body ailments or imbalances, first of all, it probably wouldn't spiral out of control, because every time we have a little symptom, we would know how to manage it before it turns into a serious problem. Well, we wouldn't have the pharmaceutical industry, if a whole society knew how to self-heal, self-repair. So I think it's all about business. It's all about control and manipulation. And that's the reason why it's been kept for a very long time.
Well, but now we have this film and lots of people around the world, which you demonstrate, England, Russia, that we are, now coming forward with a renaissance in human consciousness in a sense. But let's talk about the science, because this is what I really like to talk about. You say there's the brain, there's the mind, and there's consciousness. So I understand it. The brain, of course, is the hardware. It's your computer. The mind is the software, like what's on your computer. But your computer doesn't work with just software and hardware. You know what you need to work a computer? You need a person behind the computer. That's consciousness.
Correct.
So how do you look at that in terms of like remote viewing? If you're seeing at a distance, or that woman who had some eye problem and she started to say, and she makes some very good points, that it's consciousness that's seeing first. How is it? What is consciousness? I guess let's start there for you.
Yeah, so to me, consciousness, in fact, even the scientists in the movie talk about it. We say that consciousness is fundamental. Fundamental, it means that it's before anything, is at the base of everything. From consciousness emerges everything else, the physical world, physical experience, and everything else. So if that is the case, then the physical reality, our bodies or whatever we observe, is a byproduct, if you will, of consciousness. So it's almost like consciousness is behind everything. So if it is behind everything, which starts first? The physical reality this means that if it's behind everything, it means it's consciousness that is the trigger for physical reality and not the other way around. And that's what she says in the movie, exactly that. It's like you see first in your consciousness before you perceive it with your brain. It's fascinating.
But no, let's break that down a little bit more, because if you just say, I mean, it's great because no, there's not really any definition because it's a word that's coming into formation. But if you say consciousness is behind everything, what is conscious? What is that?
Yeah. So in the film, the scientists use the word substance. They say consciousness is a substance. I like to call it an energy. It's a form of energy that is fundamental, because also energy is dynamic, so it kind of permeates everything. A substance feels a bit heavier, I want to say, just the suggestion. I mean, we're using human terms, to describe something that is energy. So as much as possible. So to me, consciousness is a form of energy that is fundamental to all existence.
All right.
From that form of energy, from that emerges different types of consciousness and different types of energies as a byproduct.
But I think we can refine that a little more. I mean, there really is no one definition, because it's sort of a new word in the human vocabulary. It sort of almost replaced God. No one's talking about, they're all talking about consciousness, and it could be sort of the same thing. So if it's the substance behind everything, it also interacts with the human vehicle in a very unique way, but it's also beyond the embodiment too. But let's just talk about consciousness as it becomes embodied in the incarnational form. How would you look at it that way?
So consciousness is unbound by physical matter. You start off as a unit of consciousness somewhere in the universe. In your case, maybe in the Pleiades. and then so you are pure energy, because consciousness is energy. And that pure energy decides to take on physical form. So a part of you, I don't think it's all of you, but a part of you decides to manifest itself in a human body. So that's the incarnation. But actually, it is consciousness that is manifesting within a body. It doesn't cease to be what it is, which is unbound. And it doesn't become severed from its original consciousness, from where it came from. It's kind of like an umbilical cord that's never severed.
I mean, when you're talking, I get the image of like electricity. Electricity, you could say, is everywhere, but it comes through an individual light bulb, and it gives form to the light. It gives substance to the light. Without electricity, there's no light. There's the bulb. There's the empty shell. But the consciousness. So we're all consciousness. I'm just playing to kind of get an understanding, because it's so vague and it's hard to define because it's in a way undefinable. So if I'm consciousness, if we're all consciousness, that individuated consciousness comes in, animates the body, creates the mind through its social programs and its genetics, through the access of the brain. But what we are is beyond all that. I think I'm getting an idea of what you mean. So we're not the brain. We have a brain. We are the carriers. The being is the holder of this conscious field. So when you say first, when the woman in your film says, well, I'm seeing first with my consciousness, and then the brain kicks in. How does that work? Explain that.
Yeah, because just imagine that this is your physical body, but your consciousness goes beyond it, past it. So whatever's past the physical body is tapping into everything. So you are retrieving information through your consciousness out there, and then it comes through the physical brain, and the physical brain goes, oh, I am tapping into information. Oh, I am seeing something that's whatever, an object. And so that's kind of how it works. And that's how remote viewing works. That's how intuition works, telepathic communication works, because your being that is unbound by the body is out there.
It's already tapped into those.
Already tapped in. And that's why sometimes you know something before it happens, because your consciousness out there already got the signal.
Because we are out there. We are.
Exactly. But the brain has to process what you just picked up. It has to understand what that signal was. And so you're out there, you're picking up information, and then you're like, wait, I think I saw something happen to my sister, whatever. Should I call her? And so you're not sure because it didn't actually happen, quite yet, but you already saw it thanks to your consciousness that is unbound and tapped into all that is, basically.
So everything is out. Time and space have yet to come into form, is what you're saying.
Well, what happens is consciousness is not bound by the physical reality, means it's not bound by time or space. It's just everywhere. It's all at once. That's why it can get entangled with everything. So it's your physical body and your physical brain that is bound by physicality and time and space. So it's kind of like, if you will, so this part of you is 3D, three-dimensional, linear, and everything else of you that is still you is multi-layered, multi-dimensional, tapping into everything all at once. So you're both.
What's that? What was the last thing?
You're both. And so the idea is when you're focusing just on your physicality, you only experience that part of you and you think that's it. But when you learn to go back and forth and have both at the same time, it's exquisite, because you're living this 3D experience and you are switching channels to the multidimensional aspect of you, picking up information from everywhere, and yet processing it through your 3D. That's the mastery, is to be able to switch back and forth.
So really, we can know everything about anything, anytime.
Bingo.
Is that our next film? Is that the next?
That is this film. I mean, this film is to demonstrate that the mind or consciousness is tapped into everything, but also, more importantly, that it has an effect on the physical body. That's really more the focus of this film.
Right.
It's not, because I think what happens is that people have a hard time, even though we keep rehashing it, we keep hearing it, your mind creates, your mind. If you're positive, if you have positive thoughts, you feel good, blah, blah, blah. So we get it as a concept and we believe it as a concept, most people anyway. But we have a hard time, because when I put out this positive thought, like, oh, I want to create a relationship, or I want to create money, so I'm putting out these thoughts, but nothing happens. So the cause and effect, the direct cause and effect, is not there. So that's why there is no proof. People believe it as an idea, but there's no proof that it's your mind that created something. So when you say, I want to buy a house, or I want to manifest money or a house or relationship, and it happens 3 months down the road, or 3 weeks down the road, or a year down the road, then you don't make the connection. It is because you had that thought. You're like, oh, finally, whatever, Right. When in fact, there is a one-to-one connection. But because, again, your thought is now projected into this multi-layered and is going through the time-space continuum, then you are subject to time and space. And that's why your thought takes that much time, depending on how much momentum you gave it, to manifest. It doesn't mean that it didn't. It just means that it had to go through time, space. And so what this film does is demonstrate that you think, boom, here's the effect. You think, boom, here's the effect. Here's the measurement. Here's the measurement. So that's what I did in the film through the demonstrations and the the experiment to show that connection, the cause and effect, in a way I think that's never been done before in film like that.
No, it's never has been done. This is a breakthrough film, and you not only convince people this is true, you show it. You make the visual statement that, look, these people can do it, and so can you watching. And you're starting a school about it. You go around and you teach this superhumanness. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what I wanted to do also. Like, because, you know, if I've been training myself and training some students and we can do it, I mean, what's the point? That's not the point. The point was to just invite random people and get them into try to learn something that they've never done before. And as you know, we've invited random folks and some recognizable names here and there. But in general, it's people from all over the world, any age, any culture, any society. And we get them the experiments with some folks. We teach them in 2 hours how to do telekinesis, in 2 hours how to do remote viewing, and they nail it on camera.
I know, it's great. You know, I worked with Russell Targ, who started the remote viewing program at Stanford Research Institute. And you really, what the hardest part is recognizing the other part of your brain that actually knows everything. So we're always getting impressions, but because we haven't developed a lucid awareness of the subconscious, we don't realize that all of us are psychic, all of us are intuitive. So with Russell, the key to what Russell said to me, and I have this on video on my YouTube channel, is watch for the unexpected images that come, not the usual thing you're recycling in your mind, but the things that seem to come out of nowhere. Do you find that's like a key for you and the people you worked with?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's when you know that you didn't make it up or you didn't project, because it came out of nowhere. And that's why sometimes when things would happen to me spontaneously, like I would hear something, I wasn't even thinking about it, and then it would be on the news the next day. Or so when it's something like that, you know that, especially that if it's a subject that's not really, you know, I'm not even interested in it or something like that. So this is when you know that it did come from in an organic way, and it is the truth. You didn't project it. However, I do want to say that the remote viewing folks talk about conscious and subconscious, and the way they teach it, the way they train people, is the subconscious mind knows everything and is tapping into everything. I don't agree with that. I think the subconscious mind is the part of you that has subconscious beliefs.
Right.
Whereas the superconscious mind is the part of you that knows everything. And in fact, there's a bit of a conflict because the superconscious mind is the part of you that's out there tapped into everything, that's retrieving information, that knows it all, that is merged with all that is. But the subconscious mind is the one that have, you know, subconscious belief that's saying, wait, did I make this up? What if I can't do it? And so I think, to me, that there's more, I mean, it's a little bit more complex in terms of the level or of the consciousness that is really like where things are really happening. This is just a detail, but that's how they teach it, and I teach it slightly differently.
No, I think what you're saying is a very important point, because the subconscious was a mapping of the mind done in the early 1900s, the 1890s. Like, what is this thing that seems to, you know, be creative, remember things that have gone repressed? But that was just one level of mapping. What you're doing is taking the frontal lobes, the neocortex, and mapping that as a part of a kind of universal flow of energy that we're always available to. So it's like you are remapping the map of the mind, the structures of the mind. So I think super consciousness needs to come into our vocabulary, because you're right, it's different than subconscious, because we want to be super conscious beings. That's the purpose of the film.
Yeah, we don't want to be in the subconscious. I mean, and also when you are doing this work, and when I'm training people, I notice that stuff comes up. So there are blocks, you know, like what if I'm not seeing anything, and I'm not seeing whatever, and I'm not doing it right. So if the subconscious mind, the subconscious beliefs are the blocks that are keeping you away, it's kind of doesn't make sense for the subconscious to also being the part of you that knows it all. It's like, you know, it's a kind of contradiction almost.
Well, we're making a finer distinction. The whole culture, civilization is about distinctions. The developing of language is about distinctions. And what we're doing as we come into a new time of being the superhuman is making greater distinctions in the understanding of who we are. So first we have to recognize that there is a super consciousness, and then you're weaving it into the everyday vocabulary so we can talk about super conscious for the superhuman, which is really just who we've always been. I mean, right. So this is and I'm all for this evolutionary leap, and you know, you kind of were ahead of the curve there, Cara.
You know, it's funny, like, I don't think so. Like, I feel like this is so normal. You know, it's like,
normal.
It's so normal. Like, I feel like it's everybody has those experiences. They're not recognizing what they are for what they are. So sometimes they just dismiss it. No, it's a coincidence, whatever. Okay. But other people, you know, many people do have very, interesting experiences that you would normally call paranormal, but if you know, they just don't know how to process it, so or explain it. So, and there's not enough explanation out there. It's still kind of a taboo subject. And so I think with this film, I'm hoping that people will just relax and just kind of say, this is who I am. So next time I have this thing and I tap into something, let me figure out how I got it. And maybe then I can train myself to do it on purpose next time. Right. So like, you know, I'm hoping the way I made the film, that it's entertaining also, even though there's a lot of science and some serious work in there. So I'm hoping that will happen.
Absolutely. No, it's happening. The film is very entertaining, and you know, we are these super conscious beings where we are consciousness, we are energy. And the next level is to teach the outer body stuff, you know, and the astral projection, and to start to realize that we could train children immediately upon kindergarten to start to develop that higher vision. And it would, you're right, it would change the world, because like you say in your film, children are more open to this because they don't think they can't do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think to me, so as you know, in the film, we demonstrate remote viewing, telekinesis, all kind of changing the pH in water. But the most, I think, I mean, I don't know, you should tell me, but the most crazy, mind-blowing thing that we demonstrate is the blindfold.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Yes.
I mean, and so that's also, we just taught this class online, you know, after two sessions online, the kids were able to read and do puzzles. And the difference is because kids, when you tell them, okay, I want you to, what color do I have in my hand, or what is behind you, whatever, they don't question it. They just do it, you know? Right. Or they say, I don't see, or they say it is, you're holding this, or it means that. That's what I'm seeing. So my point is, their mind is very easy in the sense of speaking of subconscious, the subconscious doesn't kick in and go, wait, well, how is she asking me this? I'm not sure. I've never done it. They don't go there. Right. And because of this, they learn so quickly. Whereas teaching this to adults is like 3 times the time.
Well, let's show that clip because that really demonstrates it with the kids reading through blindfolds. Don't you have that clip?
Yeah, I do.
Let's show that.
Here we
That's really great.
Yeah.
At MPUSA in Ogden, Utah, a blindfold technique called Vibra Vision helps you sense the vibration of various objects in the physical world.
All physical matter in the universe is actually a form of energy that's made up of atoms. And those atoms are cycling or vibrating at a certain frequency. Practicing VibraVision gives us the ability to access our sensors and to perceive those vibrations, and then convert it into a usable mental image we call mindsight.
Red, yellow, blue, yellow, orange, blue, green.
From Utah, we make our way to Stuttgart, Germany. There, children are using a different approach to the methodology and display skills with impeccable accuracy. In the beginning, it felt a bit weird when I was able to see without my eyes, but after a while, you get used to it. I was rather skeptical in the beginning, but once I learned it myself, my reaction was, wow, this really works. I believe much more is possible than we know. Human beings have a lot more skills that they could develop. I also have a granddaughter who learned this skill and bops around with the mask here today. I'm amazed how well it works.
Great. That is so good. You know, that should convince everybody that we can do that, that it's possible. We have to start, training our children.
People reply to spam emails.
Oh.
No, I mean, it's odd, isn't it, given the fact that they are preposterous. And they are.
What is that?
Preposterous.
Is that my thing?
Yeah.
I got was an health officer in Ghana.
It is.
Likely.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, wait. Oh, you know what? Sorry. It's the page that was still open. Sorry. Sorry about that. But yeah, I wanted to say that, sometimes when people look at this for the first time, because it's so crazy, the first thing that comes to mind is there's a trick somewhere. Like they're faking it. And that's why in the film, as you saw, we wanted to demonstrate scientifically. We put a device inside the mask to show that there was no light. We did it in a lab to prove that you could do it even there was no light inside the mask.
Right. So I want to just we'll take some questions from the group, but there's just other couple of points. So when we understand consciousness, you talk about we really understand ourselves. Talk about what you mean in terms of that.
So, for example, when I started working with the scientists and doing different experiments myself, of course, other than my whole life having experiences and trying to figure out what I did to get there, when you do that, when you do this sort of questioning, then you understand about you. You understand who you are. You understand how you function. But then the connection with the physical world was fascinating because I would do an experiment first with DNA, for example. I would have worked a lot with DNA and with water. So when I would focus on the DNA or on the water, it would respond. Like as soon as I would have the thought, it would just like respond. It would like zap, it would show a very, very huge increase. Just a second I would think about it. It felt like it was an organic part of me type thing. But then when I try to influence a machine, like an electrical device or something like that, it felt like my consciousness was pushing, was doing something, triggering something to the electrical device. So it was different. And then when it came to the piece of paper, when I tried to move an object, that was a whole different experience. The piece of paper seemed to resist what I was telling it. It's as if it had an ego. It was like, don't tell me that I should move. I'm going to move when I'm ready to move. It was hilarious. And so that exchange, that interaction with water, with electricity, with the computer, with the piece of paper, with the foil, with the spoon, that bending makes you, realize how your consciousness is interacting with all forms of life.
And matter as well, right?
Exactly. And what effect you're having and how you're having the effect. So as you're doing this work, you learn so much about you. And then you say, wait, this is kind of like, so you have to have the experience. If this is what I did to get myself into that state to shift the pH in water, then I'm going to go back to that state and shift the pH in my stomach or in my body.
Right.
So you learn all these little things, these nuances that you can apply in your daily life. And that's how you grow.
Well, I think that's exactly the point that we could go into deeper, the nuances of this inner sensing. Like we have these inner senses that are much more complex and developed than the outer senses. So like when I do remote viewing, there's a sort of a place in my mind that starts to project images of what I'm remote viewing, but I have to go to that place. First, I have to recognize there is that place, like the pH, and it's sort of the science of consciousness, really. So there's so much more possible. I mean, there's the science. When you go to that part of your brain, you could turn invisible, you could levitate. I mean, it's unlimited, these inner workings, but it's depth and levels. So first we start with moving paper, and then then you could turn your body into light. I mean, there's steps to it, but it's all inside of us, the unlimited potential of our human capacity to interchange with consciousness.
Absolutely. That's exactly. So that's why doing this work is not like, what's the point of bending a spoon? It's not about the spoon. It's about when you focus on the spoon and you learn so much. It's so empowering. And then you apply it to other things, especially like the pH. That's why I wanted to do it in the.
Should we show that piece though? Because sure. Let's show the pH.
Yeah, because many people know that raising the pH in water changes is good for health. Viruses, bacteria cannot survive in an alkaline environment. So that's why I wanted to include it in the film.
Right.
And to show that, by the way, I'm not the first one who's done this experiment. William Tiller did it. Other people do it. But I wanted to demonstrate how simple that was and how incredibly powerful, like you get those measurements if you just know how to focus. So yeah, we can show that clip.
Show that clip. But I'll talk while you're showing it up because it takes a second. But you're saying basically, if we know how to raise the pH in water, we can raise the pH in our own fluid system and change the conditions that are affected by it, or health conditions that are affected by lower or higher pHs.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, great.
So we started at 757.
757.
And I dropped it to 747.
That's a whole unit. That's a large effect. The fact that you can change this particular parameter, the acid-alkaline balance in water, implies that you could change it in the body. The body has this amazing intelligence. It knows what it needs. So the fact that you can create an environment with your consciousness and your thoughts and your intention that pH can change at all would allow the body to change the pH in the appropriate direction that it needs. The dogma is you can't change your body chemistry by thinking about it. But the implication is that the intention and the imagery that you use can be used to change your own internal pH. And yes, just let your body do what it knows is the optimal direction and magnitude for change.
So can you talk a little bit about, because you've done all these things, you remote views, you've moved objects, you raise pH, the different parts of where you go? I mean, you sort of do it by modeling, but can you talk about those inner senses? And then we'll take some questions too. But I'm just curious about, you are teaching this, but where do you go in your mind let's say, raise or lower the pH?
Yeah, so everybody has their own methodology, but for me, I noticed that it's at the center of the brain. Some people think it's the pineal gland, but the pineal gland is picking up visual optical information, but it's around that area. There's an area that is very concentrated. I think for people, just for the sake of simplicity, if you focus at the very, very center of your brain, you will you will feel that there are receptors. So if you just focus your intention on that part of your brain and you feel a switch, you're going to feel a switch from having a linear experience to having this expanded experience. You know how when you have a meditation, you suddenly feel that you are everywhere at once. It's because of that. It's because you made that switch. And so to me, that's where I concentrate. But once you do this enough times, you don't have to even go there. You just know, your brain knows how to switch very quickly.
Exactly. That's how I teach remote viewing. I say it's like a window opens up. And so you can learn to get there. But then once someone says, okay, what's this picture I have in this envelope? It immediately shows up as boom, right there on the screen. So it's a practice, but then it just becomes natural as, yeah, I know I could see into that person's body. I could, see, okay, what's your, person doing? What's your mother, father doing somewhere? But what you described, I think, was interesting because you're saying, sort of, if I could put it together, you're using your mind to tap into a part of the brain that consciousness is illuminating, right? So what, right?
It's the connection between the brain and consciousness.
And the mind, because you're using the mind to direct it. The mind is like the steering wheel. It's not the engine.
Well, the mind is like the intention, but it's so your consciousness and your intention come together and connect with the receptors of the brain. It's like the brain has those little antennas.
Right.
So it's that connection that happens. And as soon as that connection happens, then you are all one, because your brain and your receptors and your consciousness become one. And then you can experience, even in a physical sense, all that is. You can be everywhere all at once.
Right. So have you taken this to do out of body stuff? What's your experience in that?
Yeah, I do. Remote viewing, but I don't do out of body on purpose. I don't think we should leave the body. So the way I do out of body or astral travel, I project as if I was stretching my consciousness. So I don't go out of the body and travel and come back in the body. I leave a part of my consciousness in the body and extend it and go wherever I want to go, so that over there and here are always kind of in communication.
Right.
And also I am bringing that travel experience into the body at once instead of after the fact.
You know what I also think is so important? Like when you start to develop these facilities, something actually happens to the physical body. It becomes more light infused, because like the blindfolds where there's no light coming in, but you're generating light out. So yeah, talk a little bit, because you always look so bright and sharp, so and you do these practices. So talk about the rejuvenation potential in understanding the greater parts of the brain and mind.
So I think for me, the most important thing is where you are drawing energy from. And so, because you could be tapping into the consciousness of the universe, but where is that, or you're tapping into nature, but that's kind of vague. Is it a tree? Is it the forest? So to me, throughout my work, all this time, I realized that the most effective and focused way is to plug yourself back in directly with source. Source is everywhere, but is also a hub. It is the hub of the entire universe and all of existence.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like the brain of all that is. So why would I plug myself with the leg or the foot or the, or the arm if I can go directly to the brain, which generates the energy of the entire universe? And so because of that, I feel that's the most effective for me. So when I do a meditation, it's connecting to source. It's very, very specific. When I align my brain channels, I align with source. It's very specific. And when I want to draw energy from to rejuvenate or have energy or guidance or inspiration or anything, or I'm not feeling good or shifting, it's always directly from the source into my body, into my being, that then I can emanate out. And also when you do that, because that's the original consciousness, the essence of all that is, it's almost like it's an instant balancing, recalibration. Like you're going back to the source of you.
Right.
So,
the source, from what you're saying, is sort of the generation of what you're saying, all consciousness, which is everywhere, right? So I think, though, the more we can do with being aware of all that, yes, it regenerates. Like if I'm doing lucid dreaming,
yes,
and I start to realize I'm dreaming, and I wake up out of that, I immediately have more energy. Like I may have been tired, but the lucidity of that moment generates some type of connection to a higher energy source. I don't really know why that is.
Yeah, exactly. Because we were just talking that you are physical, and beyond the physical, you are multidimensional. And so this multidimensional aspect of you is doing all kinds of stuff, lucid dreaming, astral traveling. And so when you bring that back in you, it's like it's the full you.
Right.
There's no separation. Oh, here's my 3D body, my 3D job, my 3D life. And then on the weekends, I experience my other self. It's not. You are merging, you are becoming the multidimensional you and the physical you. So it's very invigorating, and it's very centering, and it's very kind of empowering, I feel.
Well, it's re-energized. For me, it's like, if I'm awake and lucid dream and I come out, it could just be for like a minute or 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Then I have much more clarity. So yeah, I like what you're saying. Should we take some questions from some of the people that are listening on our platforms?
Yeah, absolutely, because we're all over broadcasting on Facebook. So Michael, do we have any questions or comments or anything like that for Alan or for myself?
I have more. If we don't have anyone, I always have a lot to ask you, because you're like an encyclopedia of higher consciousness. The people don't even know the work you've done. I also want to say Carolyn Corey will be featured in my new book coming out, called Making Contact, and it's about her ET. That's a whole other movie, but it's really about her deeper knowledge of the universe, and it's very exciting to. I'm glad I end the book with you, Carolyn, because you kind of wrap it all up.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I thought it came out really good. I can't wait to read the whole book.
And it flows from Nick Pope, who's like the outer, nuts and bolts guy. That's the outer shell, to the deep inner thing. That's why I finished with you, because you bring it into form as this super conscious being. So
love that. Yay. Awesome. Yes. Congratulations.
Yes, it all worked out. So what do we have there?
Michael, do we have questions?
We do. I think only Alan could put together a UFO book ranging from nuts and bolts to the consciousness side. I think he knows everybody and everyone in this field.
Well, that's my job, Michael. Thank you.
Absolutely. And people watching from all over the world. And thanks again, everybody, Alan's fans and Caroline's. Caroline, the question's for you. Do you think, was there an event or a catalyst that happened when you were young that allowed this to occur? Or was it just your environment and it just organically happened?
Yeah, that's a great question. In my case, I want to say it's both. I feel that it was orchestrated prior to my coming. I feel like it was part of an agreement at one point around the age of 5. I'm going to remake this conscious connection with beings and with my lineage and my spirit family and my higher consciousness, which is when I had the experience. Well, at the same time, at the age of 5, I don't know if I told you this story, Alan. I told you that I was just there and those beings showed up.
At Christmas, yes. You told me the Christmas story.
But I don't know if I told you what I was thinking about at the time.
No, I might have to put this in the book. What did you think?
So what happened was, it was Christmas Eve. I was just looking around, you know. So the adults were doing the tree and the gifts and just fussing, you know. And so I was watching them. And I was thinking, now I'm a 5-year-old, right? I was thinking, what are they doing? And what does this have to do with love? What does, because they were like fighting and arguing, you know, like, where do you put the gifts? Blah, 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 you know, whatever, you forgot this. And then I kept thinking, like, where is Jesus in all of this? So I was asking these questions. And then I looked at the adults and I said, these humans don't know how to love. Where is love? I kept saying, I feel that there is no love. And as I'm saying that, exactly at that time, I felt very alone in this human environment of adults. Exactly at that time, this is when the beings showed up.
Wow.
So was this, again, a trigger, an asking of, please give me a sign that love actually exists? Because that connection was incredibly loving. I felt like I was back home. The exchange was just so beautiful. I felt I was transported in this ball of unconditional love when I made that connection. So I feel like that was the trigger on a conscious level in human form, but I also think it was orchestrated from before. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense because I know your whole story there, but I'm going to actually maybe add that the being showed up for you when you said, where's love? Because that was a trigger. And so in a way, you haven't had like formal teachers, or have you, of this?
Never.
You taught yourself, right?
I never had a guru or teacher. I never followed. Now, of course, I took a class here and there, you know, energy or something like that, but not that I've never followed any formal teachings. I've never been to India or anything like that. I never felt pulled. And I felt that the beings that showed up when I was 5, they were my lineage. I knew exactly, I was their counterpart in physical form. They were my counterpart in energy form and spirit form. And we were in constant communication. And I felt that's how I am to bring the knowledge and the teaching only through this lineage and directly through the source. I've felt that from the very beginning, and I never stopped.
So not only did you not have human teachers, but these other beings were teaching you about the invisible, how to telepathically connect. And in a way, that's what you're now teaching all of us. You're teaching the world to trust that there is an invisible realm, that we are connected to higher consciousness, and that we can communicate on all levels of consciousness like that. We are consciousness.
Exactly. And so they weren't just teachers, like some beings that showed up to teach me. That's slightly different than my lineage. It's like it was my stream of consciousness from the beginning of time, like beyond any physical form. And so it's as if they made the pathway to my original essence, mine and theirs. So we come as groups of consciousness together. And so they were basically just pouring, you know, on this side of the veil, the information that I was meant to have exactly at that time. And so at 5, it was the telepathic, you know, at the age of 10, there was something else and something else and something else. And the point is, everybody has that connection. It's not the same lineage,
no,
but it's their own lineage. But that connection is never severed. That interaction is never severed. This transfer of information and teaching and downloads is never severed.
And right, and that lineage goes back to the beginning of time, where we all became the original spark of creation. And so in a way, you're the physical extension of that lineage. You're still out there, Carolyn. You're still on those, in those other realms, but it's like the fingertips are touching matter, but it's an extension of the greater conscious body, let's say.
Exactly. And everybody's the same. And so you can now begin to visualize that if I'm on this side of the veil in physical form, the rest of me is connected to my particular lineage. There are beings there that are pouring information, and that lineage connects me back to my star of origin, my galaxy of origin, or whatever, universe of origin. And that is part of what we call awakening. What are you awakening to? Yes, of course, you're awakening to you're more than your body. We get that. But what else? You're awakening to you're bigger than your human body, than your body. But you are also all of that lineage. And that lineage is information, frequency, teachings. It's a whole range of things that you are meant to brought to this side of the veil.
All right, that's our next film, okay?
Absolutely.
But one thing I want to ask you, and we could wrap up because, you know, you have a lot of interviews coming up and you're doing so much. But, okay, we're connected to that lineage through time, and that's sort of in a different time flow, right? That sort of exists not in the time space we're living in.
Exactly. So on this side of the veil, you're 3D, you're a human body. And on the other side of the veil, it's multidimensional. Just like what we were talking about, the human body. The human body is physical, 3D, and beyond this part of you is multidimensional. So you're tapping into beings and consciousness and all types of energies non-linearly, multidimensionally.
Right. So I just want to focus on one little point in that whole explanation is like, what is it that's moving through us as this ongoing flow of consciousness? We're in a flow of time and maybe space, but consciousness is feeding us in a sort of linear fashion in the physical. But that generating, it seems to me, generating newness. Terence McKenna called novelty each minute. So we're creating the universe in the sense that the flow of time space is coming through the mind, body, brain vehicle, and we're manifesting it into the now moment as something unknown. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's almost like you are downloading, or you're bringing to this side of the veil all of that multidimensional experience. But as soon as you cross this veil, it as if on this side is unknown. So a part of you is playing the game, because if you know every single thing about every single thing that's going to happen, you cannot have a physical experience. I mean, yes, you're tapping into things that are about to happen, you know, but it's like as needed, you know, because then you can't, like, if everything you think and it happens and you know exactly what you're going to say and you know exactly, you know, so then you have no experience in the time space, and that is physicality.
But does everything exist that is already known? Or my hypothesis, I don't know if it's true, that there's newness, there's novelty, there's things that are fresh that have yet to be unfold. Yes, that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I guess I didn't get there yet.
No.
And so what happened once you are in physical form, you are also in what we call the world of probability. And so that world of probability is basically the unknown, and it's up to you. You are creating. It's like you're at the edge of, you know.
The edge of the wave, and you're yes.
And every time you make a step, you are creating the next, you know. So as you are thinking, as you are projecting your consciousness, you're saying, I want to create a movie. I want to create a relationship. I want to buy a house, whatever. Every time you're doing that, you are changing the probabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And so depending on how accurate you are and focused you are, that probability and the outcome changes every single second.
And not only that, we are adding to creation as creators, which is why we're embodied, or why we exist as consciousness anyway, because if we're just consciousness, like what's the point?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, but because we are in body in these limited forms, in a sense, bringing unlimitedness, we can add to creation and what you say, add to the human, you say it in their film, add to the humanness, add to the, I took that note, contribute to the expansion of the human species. That's what you said.
Yeah, because think about this. So every time I have a thought, I'm going to make a movie, I'm going to write a book, I want to create this. And then you're doing that, and he's doing that, and she's doing that. We're all collaborating on this potential in human form. So that's why people don't realize that a thought has a manifestation. The fact that you don't see it right away doesn't mean it's not there. In fact, that's what we demonstrate in the film. You know, when you think, boom, the thing moves, it happens. And so there is an actual effect. So start to think about what you're thinking, you know, because you are pouring information, not just for your probability, but also the probability of the entire collective.
Right, but you're also showing we exist. We really are multidimensional because we're in the personality on one level, and yet we're accessing the greater mind. So we're in linear form, but we're also multi-layered and multidimensional. And that's our destiny, to realize the limit and the limitlessness of who we are. And then that's the change. That's the change in the ultimate aspect of creation. You see the sun coming through.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, you're creating the sun, the bright all around you.
Creating the sun, and that's the multidimensional. That's the source of creation. It's a symbol of the source of creation. Anyway.
Yeah, the spirit. Yeah.
So no, thank you for your time and your explanation and your dedication to consciousness itself, to the understanding of who we really can be. So I want to tell people how to find this, or tell people how to find this film, how they can watch it, because it's almost 2 hours, but every second of it, the graphics are incredible, the editing and your writing and narration is great. So where can people find this?
Yeah, the best way is for people to just go to the website, superhumanfilm.com. And also they can see, you know, all the platforms where it's showing, and we're going to keep adding more platforms. But that's the best way, superhumanfilm.com. And if they're interested in learning some of this, it's also on there as well.
And once we get out of this isolation, you're going to be traveling and teaching courses to people, right?
Yeah, so right now we're doing it online. Yeah. And then once we get out of isolation, we have a few lined up that are, you know, in person. But people can start right now. They can start right now. That's the idea of the film. And like you said, it's the kind of film that you want to see again and again, because there's so much information, so much detail, and also for you to just have fun with it and try it out. So yeah, I think it's very new, right? It's very different.
Well, I think it's something that it's our time. You know, we're definitely moving into a new phase of who we are as human beings, and this is kind of leading the way. So any other comments, anything? Are you ready to wrap up, or anything else that anyone has to say about this, Michael?
Do you have anything else, Michael?
We have a couple more. First of all, Julie and Emma are saying, guys, please do more of these interviews together. It's fascinating. A couple other fans have, Chris in the chat said, both of you have had positive contributions to my spiritual awakening. Thank you so much. I had one question, and I don't know what the answer will be, but Caroline, when you met those beings when you were 5, could you get a sense of where they were from, or have they kind of gone past being in a physical place at this point, if it's just a matter of energy? really wanted to get that one answered before we ended.
I knew exactly who they were and where they came from, and I saw the whole thing, and that's the reason why I talk about source, because they came directly from source. I could see exactly the whole stream of consciousness, how it was plugged in, and how it was kind of creating a path for me, and that's the reason why my work has been specifically based on that, because I experienced it. I knew how it all worked and why it was so important to be in this particular alignment. And so that became the base of all of my teaching and all of my energy, all of my understanding.
So you're always connected to the source, and you're sort of ambassador to wake us up.
Yes, and so are you. And
Right.
so is everybody else. The difference is that I am conscious, like at a level of awareness, I mean, everybody is in their own way, but the difference I feel, the reason why I had this experience at the age of 5 and got to understand and how it works is so that I can help others awaken it and activate it in this very conscious way.
Right. And just imagine the world we will live in when everyone realizes that they can move objects with their mind, they can remote view, they can see the invisible, really. The whole world changes. Forget UFOs. This is beyond. That already is a given, but who we are is what we're really discovering here. So,
exactly. Absolutely.
thank you for this time, because I know you're busy, and for the film. I'm thanking you on behalf of humanity. Okay.
Thank you too. I love being on your show.
I love having you because you're bringing through something that's always beyond like the personal. You're bringing through this something we all need to hear. So yes, thank you. I will do more. Okay, Caroline?
Absolutely. Lots of love to you. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Caroline Cory, Superhuman is the film, making the invisible visible. Definitely see it. Look it up, Superhuman, the movie, and just get it on your computer and watch it a few times. So, okay, we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Alan Seinfeld for New Realities. Go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/New Realities. Subscribe and send some comments to us on this video. Thank you.